Good afternoon, my friends. This is the Grimflayer. Hope you're doing very well today. It is time to jun them out yet again, but with a major twist. So this is an otherwise hyper-competitive, highly tuned jun list with Kavu Predator ×4, Grove of the Burnwillows ×4, and Devour Flesh ×2 as a major wrench in the normal works of the Jund machine. So, this is, I don't even know whether to call it a donation league. I guess not, because we're not going to play a league with it. But this is a donation video, a for fun video, but also a fact-finding mission. The idea here is that we're going to play in the practice lobby until we get maybe an hour's worth of good content. 3 good matches would be ideal. And we are kind of stress testing a really interesting idea that nobody is claiming is better than the stock list, but could have potential, especially if you build around it cleverly. So that's kind of the idea here, right? And the idea comes from Alex Cote, who is my donor for the most recent Jund video and a very generous donor overall. Alex, you may remember if you saw the video, had me shout out his friend Gabrielle Marcoux, who is a recent addition to the BGX family playing The Rock. We love that. And Alex and Gabrielle have joined forces to make a donation to me with the express purpose of playing this list in this format. So if you guys like this type of video, this type of change of pace, I think that, like, competitive league play will always be the bread and butter of the channel, but if you would like me to maybe offer this as an option, I could figure that out, how this stacks up relative to donation leagues in terms of people, you know, what threshold they would have to reach to earn them via Patreon donations, for example. So if you guys would like to see more of this, or if you wouldn't, feel free to let me know in the comments below. More videos in this type of style, in this type of format, that is. But anyway, this is what we're doing today, at least, and maybe we'll do some in the future, who knows. But thank you, big thank you to Alex and to Gabrielle. Really appreciate you guys, and it was really fun to work with them, tweaking and brewing the list. So let's talk about exactly what these unusual inclusions do and how we built around them, and then we're going to go find some opponents and get some swings in with Predator Jund. Alright guys, so let's talk a little bit about the spice. Grove of the Burnwillows is notoriously a card that sees some legacy Jund play and would absolutely see a ton of modern Jund play if Punishing Fire were unbanned. So Grove is a untapped, enters untapped, and is totally painless red-green dual land, so it's actually pretty strong. This was like 4 years ago, but you know, when I used to play Jund Living End a little bit, for example, it was pretty stock to play Grove because your own life total, it was able to function really well and preserve your own life total, and the little bit of life you would give the opponent didn't necessarily matter because you're making an overwhelming board state, right? Despite that, though, Grove is not typically a card that you see played in just any old list. It really needs to be an unusual list, or it needs to be a build-around, and Punishing Fire would be the way to build around it. You've got basically a shock effect for 2 here, but whenever you tap Grove of the Burnwillows, or your opponent gains life for any other reason, you can buy Punishing Fire back for the low cost of 1 red mana, so you can loop shocks endlessly there, and it's very oppressive to small creature decks and punishes small creature decks further for simply existing, which is why it's banned. I think more than power level, it's more about the play pattern and the incentives it sends, and for that reason, even though I think Modern could handle its power level pretty easily, I don't see a compelling reason to unban it. I think it should probably stay banned, but that's a different discussion for a different time. So we obviously can't register Punishing Fire in our Modern deck right now, but we're still playing for Grove of the Burnwillows. Why would we do such a thing? Well, the second best build around, I guess, is Kavu Predator. This is a 2/2 trample for 2, and whenever an opponent gains life, put that many +1/+1 counters on Kavu Predator. So it's kind of like Goyf's number 5 through 8. It even has the same exact casting cost, but it starts out smaller and scales even higher, has an even higher ceiling than Tarmogoyf does, can punish opponents for trying to gain life, which otherwise could be good against us in certain ways, stabilizing behind like Scavenging Ooze or Aureate Champion, cards like this. And of course, Kavu Predator has Trample too, so unlike Goyf, it cannot get chumped for days. As soon as it gets big, it's coming over that finish line one way or the other. Finally, building around those other cards is Devour Flesh as a 2-of, which is an Edict effect, which our deck likes. We would play cards like this in the past. We love Lily of the Veil, obviously. We've played Liliana's Triumph before in this deck, and Devour Flesh is a little bit worse because it does target and therefore is not as good against Leyline of Sanctity, especially Bogles, right? If you're playing an Edict effect and it still gets blown out by Leyline out of Bogles, you're going to feel so bad. Nevertheless, this is actually a really interesting meta call right now, even completely setting the Kavu build around aside, because it actually can blow out the Scourge of the Skyclaves and Shadow decks really, really hard. Let's say they have like 3 huge Shadows or Scourges on the board. Devour Flesh and they sacrifice one, maybe they're gaining enough life where the other 2 just die. Definitely really interesting potentiality with that card. And again, just another build around with Kavu Predator while also working along the normal Jund game plan. So those are the 3 pieces of spice. And when the guys brought this idea to me, Alex and Gabrielle, I asked kind of a philosophical question to narrow the focus of the deck, because they were throwing a lot of ideas around, and the idea to play these cards in the first place came completely from them. Devour Flesh, for example, is something they brought to the table, not me. But I said, look, are we playing Predator as a Goyf replacement, or as Tarmogoyf's number 5 through 8? That's really what we need to figure out in order to figure out what direction to take the list in. And they said, well, I guess we're playing 8 Goyfs. And I said, well, that's awesome. I love that. Definitely a really, really cool reason to be experimenting with something like this. And a lot of the changes that you see around it, or a lot of the selections around it, it's Jund. We could make a lot of different calls here, but they are with an aggressive slant with that 8 Goyf build in mind. So that's why we have 4 Bloodbraid Elf and no Season Pyromancer, and therefore Anger the Gods is a card that gets a little bit better when we're on 8 Goyfs, basically. Hopefully Predator will be big enough to survive Anger most of the time we'd be casting it, and no Season Pyromancer, which is a little non-Bowie with Anger. Not the worst, it's something we could weather, but these are all things we talked about during deck building. It's really, really cool. So that's kind of the core concept of the deck. We only have one piece of utility in the form of Nurturing Peatland. We have no Stomping Ground to fetch because we're playing 4 red-green dual lands already. Hopefully that won't prove too awkward. And the rest is, like I said, a pretty strong Jund list. We've got 3 Bolt, 1 Thirst, 2 Push, 4 Inquisition, 2 Thoughtseize, 2 Trophy, 2 Kroxa, can't leave home without Kroxa if you're me, 3 Wrenn and Six, only 3 Lily of the Veil, but 2 Devour Flesh does make up for missing the 4th one. We debated Pulse versus K-Command. The guys wanted to go with Pulse, and I am at their disposal, and that's totally fine with me. And we've got the full 4 Bloodbraid Elf at the top end, cascading us into aggressive stuff like Kavu Predator and taking the front foot in a lot of matchups. In the sideboard, it's a bunch of usual staples of Jund: 3 Spellbomb, 3 Wildfire, the aforementioned 2 Anger, 2 each of Boil, Plague Man, and Brutality, and a lonely but powerful Ashiok Dream Render. So guys, this is going to be really exciting. Thank you once again to Alex and Gabrielle. Thank you to all Patreon supporters and all viewers. Without any further ado, let's go find some prey for our predators. And here we are, my friends. The hand has Kavu Predator and Devour Flesh. The combo has been assembled. We simply have to keep it at all costs, no matter what. Unironically, this would be okay on the play. It's definitely a lot less thrilling on the draw, unless we can draw turn 1 action, which we don't. Turn 1 Forest Pass. I don't know what that means. Let's just get that Overgrown Tomb down, I suppose. Okay. Voice of Resurgence. Uh-oh. I've been seeing a little bit of like Wiltleaf Abzin, Little Kid Abzin, whatever that old deck is called. Just gonna get the Kavu Predator down here. The deck that like literally only beats BGX midrange. It has like main deck Loxodon Smiter, I think it is, and The cards that go into play when they're discarded. And it's just like a bunch of grindy value cards like Voice of Resurgence. I've seen a couple people play that lately. Knight of the Reliquary. Okay. A Knight deck? Sure. I'd love to find a way to kill that Knight directly. We don't have it, but we do have Inquisition, which is going to be the play. Seems good. Okay, they have Skooz Excavator, Knight Courser. Wow, okay, so frightening hand indeed. Every single one of these cards can take over the game. If we are unable to answer them, and Voice of Resurgence is kind of like stopping us from doing that with Edict effects very efficiently. So I think we have enough lands that I'm not going to worry that much about getting GQ'd out of the game by Excavator. So I'm going to take Skooz. Then I'm going to attack with Kavu Predator. And Devour Flesh for the combo. Pretty funny stuff. Love to see it. So there's a lot of ways this can go wrong for us. I think if we were on the play, we'd be in pretty okay shape. Opponent just taking the hit wisely. But the Predator is pretty big. 4/4 trample, definitely outsizing their stuff for now. Just play another Knight. They have not drawn a land, which is good. Good news for us. And now if we can draw any kind of a kill spell, we'll be off to the races. 1 mana interaction of any kind will be great. We've got bolts, pushes. Ooh, opponent racing us back. Okay, I get it. But I really want a double spell here while casting Liliana. Instead we draw land. Alright, still going to cast Lily. It'd be foolish, I think, to double block here because we're representing whatever. Nevertheless, I would have been obviously thrilled if they did, right? Just like keeping the board clear in any way is totally fine, even if it involves a 1-for-1 trade. But yeah, the Knight's about to get a little bit out of hand. So we are dead to a fetch land, I guess. Is that right? Yeah, let's see what they do. Okay, Courser. Path on the top. Alright, it's looking pretty bad for us. Knight is a really strong card against Jund. And they know they kind of have the inevitability here, especially with Path coming off the top, so they just are trying not to get cheesed out here. We'll just take care of Lily. And say that's good enough. Wonder if we should have 2 Blood Crypts in this deck. Anyway, I don't think it matters. We are not really looking like we're going to get there, are we? Noble Hierarch was in OP's hand. Got it. So let's see, there's Instant Sorcery Planeswalker land creature. So Goyf would be a 5/6 over Predator, which could be relevant. Either one can just get pathed though, right? Okay, opponent goes Excavator into Plains into Path. I assume. Looking that way. Note that Predator had grown off of the Courser of Krufix trigger, which is kind of spicy, but we need to draw the damnation that's not in our deck, don't we? Opponent just prolonging our agony by attacking our Wrenn and Six off the field. Could draw Maelstrom Pulse for the Knights. Pulse the Knights, get a Kroxa back, we're back in the game. Instead it is Grove of the Burnwillows. But on our draw step, opponent will activate this Knight. For a Bojuka Bog, okay, get wrecked. Nicely done, OP. We concede. Absolutely destroyed by a green-white Knight of the Reliquary deck. So it's not the Wiltleaf Absent deck, but it's definitely one that beats us pretty badly under a lot of circumstances. I think we're supposed to play Anger even though it doesn't kill Courser, and there are some circumstances in which Knight outsizes it. It's still really good against Voice of Resurgence and their dorks, and against Knight in some windows. I don't think we're probably supposed to bring in all 9 of these cards, but they all have roles to play. And we'll need to find a way to find the correct balance here. Problem is, we have, like, very few bad cards. Like, our entire deck's really, really reasonable here. I think I'm going to cut a couple Thoughtseizes. They could side in a card like Obstinate Baloth, and I don't want to Thoughtseize it. Our life total does matter. They are a beatdown deck. We have some pain, you know. They've got some beefy stuff along the ground. And we also just want to focus on answering the board and deploying our own threats. So I might be inclined to trim Kavu Predator in this matchup. But we're here to test it, so maybe I shouldn't. I'm going to cut a Spellbomb, play with like only 1 Brutality. I think all this is fine. I think I'm actually going to cut a Wrenn. Going to cut a Kroxa. 2 more cuts to make. Maybe we trim a couple of Goyfs, or maybe 1 each of Goyf and Predator. We'll split the difference. We'll be nice to Predator. Keep it around. I think this is a pretty good plan. We're pivoting toward more of a control plan, but maintaining the ability for an oppressive, like, aggro, disruptive start. Keep looks totally fine to me, but it needs a 3rd land pretty badly. We'd love for it to be Blackcleave Cliffs. Opponent will go down to 5, though. That's going to help us a lot. But note that our hand doesn't actually cast anything besides Lightning Bolt for quite a while. Opponent's mulling to 4, though. Hard to imagine us losing against another fair deck when they mull to 4 and we keep 7. But they mulligan down to Leyline of Sanctity? Okay. I actually almost said, and I don't think they're playing Leyline of Sanctity, but shows what I know, right? Okay, I was thinking about maybe not fetching here just to not thin, but we're going to bolt this in case we draw a 2-drop. We draw arguably the best card we could have drawn under these circumstances, which is Wrenn and Six. Hard to see us losing at all from here. An opponent's Bojuka Bog coming just a tad too late to stop the Wrenn. Alright, and we've drawn another mountain, or another land in the form of mountain. So we're just going to pick things up and put things back down. like a weightlifter would. Wrenn and Liliana. Combo online. Let's go. Plague Engineer and Anger of the Gods ready to X for 1 them even more. If they dare to deploy a threat into this that somehow we couldn't otherwise kill. We get Voice out of their hand, which was uncastable. It's going to deploy Plague Engineer naming human. Get our beat on. But we're in that spot where there's no bad play. All right, we're starting to flood, so now I'm going to start looping Peatland with Wrenn here. I think binning this backup Lily is fine. We can't alt them or edict them anyway. I'm amazed opponent is playing this one out. We are just having all of the joy here. They are having very little of it. But to be fair, there's not like a deterministic win condition yet, because we have nothing to retrace with Wrenn. And even if we did, a lot of it would be shut off by Leyline in terms of just like actually killing them. And we can't ping them with Wrenn, or as mentioned, edict or alt them with Lily, so the Leyline definitely giving them a reason to stick in the game, I guess, but all right. I'm just going to ping the knight twice, I guess, here. I don't mind losing the Wrenn. Again, the emblem is not that exciting right now. We just leave Lily at 6. All right. OP sticking it out. These hangers are looking real awkward, aren't they? Time to get ourselves a Kroxa back. What do you say? And we did it in such a way where the Nurturing Peatland ends up in hand and not in the graveyard. Alright, well, OP letting us flex here and playing to any possible out. You do respect that. Breeding pool. Okay. We see a minor blue splash is involved. Good to know. Maybe they're doing it because they're nostalgic for Oko. Would make a little sense based on their Avi. Alright, I guess one of these angers is begging to be cast, so... Ooh, wait a minute. The Plague Engineer debuff will go away. Well, we can always ping. Alright, sure. Yeah, okay, the Plague and Man actually, they do die together. I wasn't quite sure how that would work. Okay. That win was deterministic from turn 0 with her mulligan to 4, but Kavu Predator didn't get the kill, so we are left unsatisfied. We need another kill. We need another one. So, Nihil Spellbomb, we should re-examine. I have it in because it's a free roll. Most of the time, but it's not a free roll against Leyline of Sanctity. In clearing out their graveyard against Excavator and Knight makes a good amount of sense, especially on the play. But now that we know about Leyline, and also now that we're on the draw, we might not have as much time to deploy and activate the Spellbomb in a profitable way. So, with that in mind, I think I'm going to go down to 1. And I think everything else is fine. I think I'm going to go down to 1 Plague Engineer on the draw. It's not as oppressive. Or consider going down to 1. It's not as oppressive. And, as we saw, can be non-Bowie with our anger. I think on the draw I'm putting another Kroxa back in. Again, having seen Leyline, I think that makes sense too. And maybe just another Collective Brutality, which... is going to do a good amount for us and hedges us against most things. It can contribute in most ways. It's not one of those matchups where it's dead if they have a Leyline, right? The hand is great. It sucks that the Swamp cannot help cast Wrenn, but it is a great hand. Uh-oh, opponent keeping a Leyline 7. You hate to see it. So because of that, at least there's no tension between fetching and shocking and also gaining them life. Giver of Runes, interesting. Okay. We draw push, which is nice. So if we fetch Blood Crypt, I guess we're doing everything we need to do. I'm going to bolt here. Bolt cannot go upstairs as long as Leyline's around, and push is going to kill a good amount of things in this deck that Bolt will not. The opponent plays a 0/1 out into the loving arms of our Wrenn and Six. That, my friends, is the dream. But we're going to give... wow, if I could talk, that'd be cool. We're going to give them a life, so that about balances out, right? That's fair. They gain a life off of Grove. It's like the same thing. They play a bird out. What's going on? Well, let's deploy our land, and I'm going to begin by trying to ping here if they have a trick in response. No, they don't. Maybe they just didn't want us to pick up that land, I guess. That does make some sense. Basically, they were hoping we didn't have a natural third land. But apparently, Wrenn is just completely hosing them this game. And now's a really good window for Kroxa. Okay, opponent doing nothing. Now we would love to draw Liliana of the Veil. We've drawn Maelstrom Pulse, huh? Okay. I think I'm pretty happy pulsing that ley line and then Inquisitioning the opponent. We could get punished for this, but I suspect they might be sitting on like a Path to Exile. And that would be really rewarding, so I'm going to fire it off here. Haha, called it. Their last card is Coco, though, so that's a little scary if they draw fourth land. They do not. They draw Pithing Needle. All right. The fun ends with Wrenn and Six, but if we can put one more card into the graveyard, we can escape Kroxa, get the Coco out of their hand, and we hit a fetch land off the top. Nice. So nice. Okay, things are really coming together. This has been really fun. Sadly, we haven't done much with Kavu Predator, but hey, not the perfect matchup for it to shine, admittedly. OP with a Noble Hierarch. Think we can probably beat that, don't you? We'll give them the opportunity to jump here. They decline. I'm going to push just basically to stop them from Cocoing. And because they're just dead next turn, well, I guess not next turn necessarily if they play something that's going to gain them life with Devour Flesh, but they draw land anyway, so that is G, my friends. Draw another Devour Flesh. At least we're seeing these cards, right? Okay, Kroxa OP. That's something that we already knew. That was still a fun one. Opponent showed us in game one how the really coherent curve out with Voice of Resurgence kind of anchoring all of it can really be a problem for us. But at the end of the day, we junted them out with the help of a deep mulligan from OP. Hello, my friend. This is Dan. This is Discord moderator Dan. Little does he know he's going to be on video, and I have no idea what he's going to be playing, but we're going to keep. I think he will never assume that he's being recorded right now. Should we tell him? Should we tell him? Alright, he's going to Inquisition us. He's going to... Dan's a really good player. Right away, he's going to pick up on Grove of the Burnwillows and wonder what that's all about. We have drawn Devour Flesh. He'd also wonder what that was about if he could have seen it. Yep, he does pick up on it. Hey, now he's going to see Devour Flesh. Down goes Goyf. We've picked up a Bloodbraid Elf, so in this attrition matchup, nominally that is a good draw, especially after a Thoughtseize just hit us. In practice, we show no signs of curving out with more land drops, so we'll see how it all goes. We got to fade Liliana from the opponent. We can trophy her, but that'll be really annoying to have to do. Oh, Spyro. Yeah, that's pretty annoying, I guess. That actually feels a lot worse to do anything against Elemental. Okay. And they picked Lightning Skelemental, Bloodstained Mire. I think I'm just untapping for now. Here it is, Kavu Predator. This is the one. This is the one we've been waiting for. Of course, it's a Rakdos deck that just drew a few new cards, so the odds of them not having a kill spell for our 2-mana 2/2 are little to none. Dan's mind is being a little bit blown over there, but he's just going to kind of roll us this game, it looks like. We are a little too clunky. For our own good. Dreadhorde Arcanist. Okay. That's something I'm happy to kill, but we can't draw another land to save our lives, and therefore we are just falling further and further behind. The only hope is that they flood, and since they've only made 3 land drops, they're officially not flooded by turn 5. Ransack the Lab. This is the ideal circumstance under which to use a Ransack for the opponent when you're already on the front foot and the other opponent is stumbling a lot. The third land is okay, but it is only a Grove of the Burnwillows, which is very awkward. So I think I'm going to pulse the Spyro here. We need to, unfortunately, just start casting these spells to find ourselves in a position where we can eventually control the board. No matter how it ends, the opponent, no matter what we do here or what we don't do there, the opponent benefits. So we're basically just erring on the side of mana efficiency. Here comes Kroxa. Oh, Blood Moon. All right, okay. We just basically lose to that. We don't have many outs, if any. Yeah, I'm gonna concede. Absolutely wrecked by Dan. Our deck is not did not show its mettle there, but opponent's progression would have been tough to beat even if it had. Alrighty, so against a Rakdos Midrange, we like the Spellbombs. Ashiok is on the table. Opponent's playing Dreadhorde Arcanist, which is an additional incentive to play Ashiok. I think I can see one on the play. I'm not, like, hard locking it in, but it definitely seems alright. Brutality seems okay against Arcanist as well. But we don't want to get caught with too much sorcery speed action or too much kind of vulnerable stuff against Skelemental. There is much to consider here. I think I'm going to trim a couple discard spells, one each of Inquisition and Thoughtseize, leaving a Thoughtseize in to respect the potential for Hazaret. And yeah, I think we will play Ashiok here. Just the one. Devour Flesh looked really bad there, but there are sequences or windows where it will be good. I think 1 is fine. I think 1 is about appropriate. 3 Lily seems about right. I think we're going to leave in all 8 Goyfs. Just need to make 1 more cut. Alright, we're going to move further away from discard on the play. Put our faith in this configuration that is threat dense and powerful. Yeah, this looks good enough. I'm not going to fetch a second swamp. Not sure if Blood Moon will still be in against us, and if it is, you know, so be it, right? We're going to get a couple Goyfs down underneath it. Alright, well, let's run the first one out. I don't love doing this in the face of a possible lightning bolt, but they could just as easily have Fatal Push. They add Cling to Dust in this case. They could just as easily draw discard. And our hand doesn't really allow us any alternative sequencing besides playing Kroxa there, which would have been felt maybe worse to get that clung. Speller ability would cause its controller to gain life. That player loses that much life instead. Okay. He's probably assuming that we've got some kind of combo going with the Grove, which is a very reasonable assumption. Going for the Kroxa now. Alright, Goyf has been grown. Big part of me just wanted to play another Goyf there, but Graven Cairns. Alright, we've got the future sight lands on both sides of the table. OP with a Spyro. Pitching Spellbomb in the face of face of our Kroxa is interesting. Thought about the bolt there. No need. We're rewarded too, because now we're just going really wide, really tall at the same time. And so we can hopefully assume that we're going to batter through this stuff just fine without the need to have bolted. So Reign of Gore, the way I guess that works, we're still going to gain the life off of Kavu Predator. Wasn't sure how the templating worked. This is not stuff I need to know for the usual course of Modern. But this is what our deck is meant to do. 8 Goyf. Only granted, Kavu Predator is still much worse than Tarmogoyf at the moment, but it tramples in the ceilings high. You do wonder what is in Dan's hand, though, given the pitch of Spellbomb and all. Whoops. Yeah, I don't remember if I said this. I was going to say I had the read for another Spyro, but we're both, wondering about this templating with Grove of the Burnwillows and Kavu Predator in Reign of Gore. Wow. Oh, Bajuka Bog? Oh man, we get blown out. That was a blowout. Okay. So, interesting. We've got the ability to play a lot of tricks at instant speed, though. So I think the thing to do will be to attack, see how the opponent decides to block, and then make our plays as we have to. Probably using as few of these spells as we feel we need to. Alright, that blocking order is fine. Guess we'll get Forest in case they're on Blood Moon here, right? I'm just going to trophy here and say, can you beat all of this stuff? It also helps beat, it also helps fuel the graveyard for Kroxa. Obviously, that's a pretty underwhelming play in a couple different ways. But hopefully the opponent doesn't have a push here to really punish the play. Or a cling. They have a push. That sucks. Okay. Nevertheless, we are the aggressor. One card of any kind that goes to the graveyard and we can escape Kroxa, as long as it is a 1-mana play or a fetch land. And Kavu Predator is scaling into the late game. Fascinating. Yeah, Hazaret, this is a card that was on my radar. Cannot yet attack or block, but maybe can at instant speed if they've got another 1-mana play. Oh boy, do we want to test that out? I think we're supposed to. Yeah, I think we're supposed to because we're rewarded if they don't, and if they do, well, then we can escape Kroxa. Absolutely wrecked. Nonetheless, guess we should leave a land in there, right? Nonetheless, we have this consolation prize. Kroxa does outside Hazy, and I mean, opponent finding the second fatal push was kind of perfect for them either way. And we get Bloodchief Thirst out of their hand, so they're drawing all the good removal spells against our particular build. And another Spyro! Dan, you're killing me here. And another Bloodchief Thirst. Absolutely wrecked. Oh, my goodness. Well, Spellbomb is an okay draw here for sure. Cleaning up the back half of the Spyros, but, like, our deck can't really beat 3 resolved Spyros if things are otherwise equal, can it? Bloodbraid Elf, just shy of being able to come down. And more importantly, we just can't beat Hazaret, unless we were closer than we are. You know, maybe we find a spot for an Edict, but that's about it. So if we had stayed back, it doesn't get any better for us. They can just push on the unstep, do the same thing, and we would be... we would not have escaped the Kroxa and gotten that other removal spell out of their hand. So we get wrecked either way. Oh my god. Dan with the stylish, complete crushing of our deck here. Absolutely crushing everything we're trying to do. I can pretty safely concede here, but maybe he has lethal too. At this rate, it seems likely. So, I assume he does, but let's take the highest upside block. Graven Cairns. Ah, Hazaret. Yeah, I didn't see that. Not that we had any choice either way, or any chance either way, but that was definitely Xaxes. Drawing Wrenn off the top for absolutely no relevance here. Well, that was a Rakdosing. Look at the cards in the opponent's graveyard. Looking forward to the vid if you post it. I will. Look at the... So, no 3-0 for us today. There is a Subway sandwich riding on this. Dan, you can't blame me. Our progression was okay. You have to blame Dan's nut draw and very good play here. Denying us 3 straight wins in the lobby and denying... I think it was Alex was going to buy Gabrielle a Subway sandwich if we won all 3 lobby games. We're not gonna. Or he's not gonna, because we didn't. But if you look at the cards that are in Dan's graveyard, it's literally all the stuff that is good against Jund. Specifically against 8 Goyf Jund, where we have a higher focus of things that are trading without advantage for us and at a tempo advantage for the opponent. With Fatal Push and Bloodchief's Thirst. So we've got the 2 drops, they've got the pushes. That's a win for them, and when they're clearing out our graveyard, setting up their own plays, and most importantly, resolving 3 Spyros and a Hazaret, that is what you need to do to beat our decks. So, this was fun. It was cool to run into Dan, of course, and it is definitely I guess, weakness if Fatal Push is in the meta. If we're building around Kavu Predator, and it's getting tempoed out by Fatal Push decks, well, that's something to consider. Here we are. Good luck, have fun to the opponent. This hand comes to do what we are here to do. It's playing Kavu Predator with the Grove of the Burnwillows. 'Tis a keep. All right, opponent plays Elvish Mystic, I guess we are, against Elves. Or it's somebody who's reaching really deep for more than the usual mana dorks. But should we play a Kroxa in this situation, or should we get a little bit aggressive with a Predator? Overall, I'm not certain, but I am going to err on the side of getting the Predator down, I guess because they kept 7, among other things, and I really expect to be edicting something next turn with Liliana, if we're lucky enough to draw black land for her. Opponent doesn't do anything, so we're actually a little bit punished, in a way, because it'd be really cool to have gotten a card out with Kroxa and then be playing Lily too, right? But But that's not where we're at. I think we're supposed to tick up and pitch Forest here. It would be cool to pitch Kroxa if we had a land that could unearth escape him next turn. Ooh, I guess I tapped incorrectly with Grove. Yeah, I didn't even... Yeah, because I was just holding W to tap. Whoops. Alright, well, if you ever play this deck, there's a teachable moment. You should make sure that you are actively forcing the opponent to gain life. That's what we want to be doing when we have Kavu Predator online. But opponent is on an Elves deck. Our turn 1 removal set them back, and now they have to play an Archdruid out into the Edict, which is very bad for them. Let's make sure the opponent is gaining life so our Predator can grow. Now we're talking. And now we can do it all. And obviously a Wrenn can control an Elf's board really well. So we are definitely well on our way toward victory here. I guess the thing I'm afraid of the most is the opponent having, like, land into a nutty Collected Company on the end step that we might not be able to handle with perfect cleanliness. And that would be maybe the start of how things could go bad for us, but don't really see us dropping it from here, do you? I guess Arbor Elf was probably their draw for this turn. I think they would have played it last turn if they had had it in hand. Lead the Stampede. All right, opponent rebuilding. With 4 cards. Mystic, Warcaller, Elves, and Dwynen's Elite. Llanowar Elves, to be specific. Yeah, okay. Jiraga Warcaller. Sure. Let's ping with Wrenn, take up with Lily. Hold on to the trophy. We're not escaping Kroxa this turn. That is fine. Holding up trophies, definitely big game in this spot. So our Predator would be a 5/5 if I had noticed that we were tapping for colorless on turn 3. But still putting in a shift. An opponent must surely read us for a removal spell, so they're probably feeling relatively helpless at the moment. Elvish Champion. A very cool card. Not one that will save them under these circumstances. And I specifically remember hearing, like, back in the day, when I was new to Modern and reading a ton about Elves, that Elvish Champion can be a trap against Jund, because you think you have Forest Walk, you send the whole team in, they have 1 removal spell on your champion, and then their big stuff blocks your big stuff. But, of course, all of that is a bit of a relic of an earlier, and some would say better time in Modern, right? We're just going to keep killing with Wrenn. Yeah, I'm going to take up with Lily. We lose the Goyf, but escaping the Kroxa is incredible. It's going to get all but 1 card out of their hand. And Kroxa is quite the beat stick. Opponent says this is brutal. LOL. Sorry that we're lagging so hard here. Don't know what's going on with that. My client's been on and off really laggy ever since the update. Let's try to finish out this match without any further issues. Opponent will lead the Stampede again, this time into Elvish Visionary and Jiraga Warcaller. So I think they still have one Warcaller in hand, or have they pitched one? I guess they've pitched one. Really doesn't matter too much now, does it? Because that is just GG. Opponent says, I mean, you're doing a great job of winning. Yeah, that's pretty true. We are being given every single tool in the arsenal that we need to beat an Elves deck. And I guess we're going on to sideboarding. So, that was Junding out, and Kavu Predator at the 4, the tip of the spear, taking it to the opponent. You love to see that. Obviously, the win really coming from our Wrenn and Lily and plethora of removal, but still some good display, honestly, from Kavu Predator as well. Again, just giving you Goyf 5 through 8, so you have the pressure along with all the disruption. Now the big question is what to cut. We have 6 great cards to bring in. We have like no bad cards to cut, so I'm going to probably end up cutting some very playable stuff, like a couple discard spells. We probably honestly should cut a couple of Kavu Predators or Tarmogoyfs, and because we seem really favored and because we are in the lobby and because we're here to play the Predator, let's cut Goyf. We'll play a couple Predators, right? I also want to respect the opponent here and just sideboard quickly, not tank over decisions. Because we're just here to have fun. We've got a double Kavu Predator nut draw. And it's not because of Push and Plague Engineer. No, no, no. You see, it's because of Kavu Predator. Do you understand? Do you understand the power? Okay, we are not so lucky as to draw a Wrenn this time. I'm going to go get Mountain here and play the Predator. And hey, opponent's still Elves. They still kept 7. You know, they can definitely go off from here, but if they do anything besides play a Lord, they're going to get blown out by the Plague Man. And then the 2-2 beats will start. Okay, opponent does play a Lord. It is Elvish Champion. Well, we just keep drawing lands, huh? So, let's attack. Opponent's obviously not taking the trade. Yep. So, I think we're just supposed to pass. The risk of passing is that they draw Veil of Summer, or they've had Veil of Summer, but they haven't felt able to hold it up. So if we get blown out by Veil, we get blown out by Veil. That's going to suck. I don't see that. I don't see playing around that as optimal because the opponent obviously missed a land drop. They could turn on some really scary stuff if we just give them one, especially main phase with Assassin's Trophy. On top of that, we're not representing just a trophy, which is kind of like the worst thing we could be representing. We could be representing 3 removal spells right now, you know? But let's go for the trophy now. An opponent attacking with the Monodork is really good. Now the only thing I fear is Veil of Summer. Wrap in Vigor. Okay, well, it's not Veil. So it's just a 1-for-1 trade. I guess we'll accept that. That's cool. The regeneration animation kind of pulls it back from combat, and we only take 2. The rules of regenerate are pretty arcane, and I guess we just saw that there. Unfortunately, we are simply drawing lands. And not even Grove of the Burnwillows to make our Predator swole. Alright, at this point I'm worried about just kind of like losing a race And I'm not really reading them for any kind of removal, but if they've been slow rolling a Dismember, then they will have earned it. But let's just be a little more mana efficient, get the Plague Man down. I want to be able to cast the other one if we draw it. And have the blowout go our way. Oh, they've got another Elvish champion. Alright, now we need to draw Maelstrom Pulse. Opponent just sending it. Never scared. I love that. That's how they should be playing right now, for sure, under these circumstances. Devour Flesh, huh? We're going to try to win this race, and therefore we're going to cast a Devour Flesh before damage to grow the Predators here, and hope it's good enough. I right now suspect it won't be, but we're junned. So many of our draws turn the tide immediately. If these Predators were Tarmogoyfs, we would have... I guess they wouldn't be that huge. They would be 3-4. But they'd definitely be better than 2/2s. But now we've got some big Predators. Now it's happening. And maybe we'll turn this race around. Who knows? Double Elvish Champion is the type of stuff they needed to beat our Plague Man, though. And us not drawing any other removal, I guess. Well, it's not true. We've drawn Devour Flesh, which was a pretty good find. And now we have drawn Bloodchief's Thirst, which is another pretty good find. Let's hope they don't have another Rapid Vigor. We gotta kick it. Rapid Vigor. Yep, getting blown out. Interestingly, we can still trample with the Predators. But they could double block, and I don't think that's worth it. I think we're just sitting back. Even though they have Forest Walk, I think we're sitting back. Getting beat down by Forest Walk, and Regenerate. Two abilities that have absolutely been phased out of design, and ones that nevertheless live on in the Elves tribe, which you do love to see. And now they go so wide that our only out is probably an Anger of the Gods. They're going to stay back. We've got Fatal Push, huh? So we're going to push 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're not dead if they have nothing, and they attack all out, and we push 1 Elvish Champion. But that's if they have nothing, right? And I didn't play my fetch land, so that was just disastrously bad. Obviously needed to play that for Revolt. I conflated this in my mind because while I had the Bloodchief's Thirst last time, my first instinct was we need a Revolt for it, because I'm conflating that with Fatal Push, and then the reverse happened. The reverse happened in my mind as I knocked my microphone over. So that was bad. Just talking and Not thinking here too much. Nevertheless, it'd be pretty risky to all-out attack here for the OP, but they've been doing that so far, and so far it's been the correct decision. Now it's a lot sketchier, and yeah, I don't blame them for staying back, and we're rewarded for it. Okay. So let's fetch. Getting a tapped crypt here is fine. Now we have Revolt, and now it's Bloodbraid time. That way, if we cascade into another push, we'll have it, although, now that I think of it, that was actually unnecessary because there are none left in our deck. Lightning Bolt, though. That'll do it. That will do it, my friends. And now the Plague Man blowout happens, and it's gonna be it. Oh my goodness. Alright, I don't feel that I deserved this win. The opponent has to block here. Stay alive, yeah. In some way, shape, or form, anyway. I guess. I don't think that's the right block. Opponent doesn't realize they trample. That's okay. We have made some minor oversights, too, just like that was a minor oversight. I think they're supposed to double block Plague Engineer there instead, but obviously they can't come back from this. Alright, so we take down Elves, and that was satisfying not only because they were some really feel-good wins and some really swingy board states, but also because Kavu Predator led the way in both games. That was definitely really, really cool. And, besides that, obviously Jund beats Mono-Green Elves pretty handily under most circumstances. In a league situation, we consider our sideboarding more carefully, we consider our sequencing more carefully in a couple spots where I just kind of winged it. Doesn't matter. You draw your pushes, bolts, and Bloodchief's Thirsts off the top. After admittedly a period of kind of treading water and being on the back foot, and you will get there with a big hand from the Plague Man as usual. Well, guys, we learned a lot in those 3 matches, didn't we? We learned that Kavu Predator can have some really good use cases. We learned that because it's an unusual card, and it's kind of unusual for a big beef stick like this at a low curve, that it gets as big as it does to also have trample. You see how, like our Elves opponent did at the very end, people will forget about it and they will block suboptimally against it. We also learned against Dan, where we got crushed, that Reign of Gore, at least on MTGO, does not work as he assumed it did, and frankly, I kind of would have assumed that it did as well. Our Predator was still growing when we tapped our Grove of the Burnwillows, and the way Reign of Gore is templated, maybe you would imagine that it wouldn't, I don't know, but that didn't help us there, because kind of like we drew all of our pushes, bolts, and thirsts at the end there against Elves, that's kind of what Dan did to us, and he was churning through the deck really handily with Spyros as well, so definitely got crushed by a mid-range mirror. And overall, playing your 2-drop threat that doesn't ETB, doesn't have an on-death trigger, or doesn't stymie interaction in any way. I guess we should expect that. I guess we should expect our mid-range mirror matchup to have decreased in likelihood of us coming out on top if we're on this Kavu Predator build. Possible exceptions for Scourge of the Skyclaves decks, just because you could really blow them out some of the time with Grove of the Burnwillows. It might not be as easy to do as you might think, or the stars might not align all that often, but even like 1 or 2 free wins out of a big group with Grove, or indeed more commonly with Devour Flesh against those decks, could go a long way. So I think against non-Scourge of the Skyclaves mid-range decks, we will suffer with this build, which is what Dan aptly demonstrated against us, and maybe we get a little extra edge, especially because nobody's going to think this stuff is around. Nobody's going to be playing around this against the Rakdos mid-range decks that pack Scourge and Shadow, or the mid-range adjacent decks. Otherwise, we saw a couple of green creature decks, which do see more play in the lobby, admittedly, than they do in Modern, but Elves is a very good matchup for us. We demonstrated that aptly, and while the traditional Jund cards were actually winning the game, it was really cool because Kavu Predator came down on turn 2 both games and actually closed it out, so that was really nice. And then against the green-white kind of Hate Bear style Knight of the Reliquary deck, we definitely showed in game 1 what kind of a stumbling block they can pose to any Jund progression, or any Jund build, really, whether Kavu Predator oriented or otherwise. And then in the post-side games, admittedly with the help of a deep mulligan in their game 2, but they kept a Leyline 7 in game 3. We still got there pretty comprehensively. Wrenn and Six, Liliana of the Veil carrying us significantly in those games. But yeah, so Kavu Predator, I guess, obviously nobody, including the donors here, was claiming that it would be better than the current stock options of Jund, but this is pretty spicy. And there might be something there if and when Punishing Fire gets unbanned, because maybe then our incentives change enough that we want more Tarmogoyfs, even if it's not the full 4 Kavu Predator. You could see playing a couple, like maybe Punishing Fire makes the meta more binary, where there's a lot of, like it's too good not to play, but there's also a lot of combo and a lot of big mana trying to beat the Punishing Fire decks. So under those circumstances, maybe we want Goyfs 5 and 6, for example, in the form of Kavu Predator. I have no idea. Or maybe we'll just never play this card in an optimized list under any circumstances, and that's cool too. Either way, I had fun here. Hope you guys did as well. Thank you so much once again to Alex and Gabrielle for setting this up, for donating toward it, and for working with me to solidify a list. I hope you had fun here. Whoop, just got a phone call I had to take, my friends, but I'm back. I don't remember where I was when I stopped talking. I think we were saying thank you to Alex and Gabrielle, so sorry I couldn't get you that Subway sandwich secured, Gabrielle. Feels bad, but you know what? We have Dan to blame. If only Dan's Rakdos deck didn't style on us so hard, you might be getting your very own Subway sandwich courtesy of Alex, but not to be today. I hope you will be all right with that. I hope you'll be okay, and I guess Alex is probably happy, right? But anyway, we had a lot of fun here. If you guys want to see more content like this, of course I can refine it and make it better over time, as I endeavor to do with every form of content, but the basic idea would be that instead of a list that we play through 5 rounds of a league, it would be a list that we play through roughly 3 rounds of the practice lobby. So this gives us more room to really experiment or to play jank and to still have the justification to do so, right? We're not like sitting through 5 full rounds and there's no ticks at stake if it turns out to be a bit of a disaster. And also, I can control the content a little bit more, so like we can keep playing games until we get stuff that really shows the pros and the cons of the deck. We just want to see reasonable gameplay, right, when we do stuff like this. So if you guys think that this could be a good part of the channel, something good for donors to earn in addition to or as an alternative to the traditional leagues, I will have to figure out the details of that, but first I'd like to gauge the general interest. So anyway, there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know what you think. Kavu Predator in Jund alongside Grove of the Burnwillows and Devour Flesh. Pretty cool stuff. Hope to see you for the next video. Take care.